Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the stars drift past the main screen. The U's Ranger moved through space at a steady pace, its engines humming quietly. Jake had been patrolling this sector for 3 months without seeing anything more exciting than a broken cargo ship. The Ranger was not the biggest ship in the human fleet, but it was tough. Like all human vessels, it was built to survive anything the galaxy could throw at it. Earth had taught humans to expect the worst and prepare for it. Other species called Earth a death world, and they were right. Only the strongest survived there, and those survivors built ships that could handle anything. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Lisa Rodriguez from her position at the navigation station. She was young for a ship's navigator, but Jake trusted her skills completely. Lisa had guided them through 3 asteroid fields and 2 solar storms without a scratch. "What kind of strange?" Jake asked, turning his chair toward her station. "It's a distress signal, but it's not coming from any human ship. The pattern is different." "Alien." Lisa's fingers danced across her controls, fine-tuning the signal. "I think it's coming from the Kepler 442 system." Jake frowned. That system was supposed to be empty, except for a small research station. The Galactic Federation had given permission for someone to study the rare crystals found on the 3rd planet. He could not remember which species had set up the station. "Put it through the speakers," Jake ordered. The bridge filled with a sound like wind chimes mixed with bird songs. It was beautiful, but somehow desperate. The universal translator worked for a few seconds, then produced words that made Jake's blood run cold. "Please, anyone who can hear this message, we need help." The raiders came without warning. "Our people are dying. We have no weapons, no way to fight back. They demand we surrender, or they will destroy our entire colony. Please, if there is anyone out there who can help us, we are running out of time." The message repeated itself, growing weaker each time. Jake could hear the fear in the alien voice, even through the translator. "That's a Zephyrian signal," said Danny Clark from the engineering station. Danny knew more about alien technology than anyone else on the ship. He was always reading technical manuals from different species. They're peaceful folks. Never hurt anybody. They probably don't even have security guards, let alone soldiers. Amy Turner looked up from her weapons console. She was the ship's security chief and knew more about fighting than the rest of the crew combined. If they're asking for help against raiders, it's probably the Corthics. Those animals have been hitting research stations all along the outer rim. Jake stood up and walked to the main screen. The stars looked the same as always, but somewhere out there, innocent people were about to die. The Corthics were known throughout the galaxy as brutal killers who took slaves and destroyed anything they could not steal. "How long to reach Kepler 442? He asked Lisa. "At maximum speed, about 6 hours, she replied. "Captain," Amy said carefully, "the Corthics usually travel in fleets. If they're attacking a research station, they probably brought at least 10 ships, or just 1 cruiser." Jake knew the odds were terrible. The Ranger was tough and well-armed, but it was still just 1 ship. The Corthics would have numbers on their side, and they were experienced fighters. But the alternative was letting innocent people die while waiting for help that might never come. "Set course for Kepler 442, maximum." "Speed," Jake ordered. "Sir, shouldn't we contact Federation Command first?" Lisa asked. "They could send the proper fleet. How long would that take?" Jake replied. Lisa checked her communications board. "The nearest Federation fleet is 4 days away. Even if they left immediately, which they won't without proper authorization and committee approval, it would take them at least a week to get there. The Zephyrians don't have a week. They probably don't have 6 hours." Jake returned to his command chair. "Danny, I want every weapon system checked and ready." "Amy, break out the heavy ammunition. Lisa, send a message to any human ships in the area. Tell them where we're going and why. Captain, Amy said, are you sure about this? We could all die out there. Jake looked at his crew. Lisa was barely 25 years old. Danny had a wife and 2 children back on Mars. Amy had survived 3 different wars, but always as part of a larger force. They all had good reasons to avoid a hopeless fight, but they were human, and humans had learned long ago that some fights were worth having even when you could not win. Earth had taught them that survival sometimes meant standing up to things bigger and stronger than you. It had also taught them that the strong had a duty to protect the weak. We might die, Jake admitted, but if we don't try, those Zephyrians will definitely die. I can live with the first possibility. I can't live with the second. The crew looked at each other for a moment. Then Lisa turned back to her controls. Course laid in for Kepler 442. Ready to jump to maximum speed on your order. Danny's fingers flew over his engineering displays. All weapon systems online and ready. Extra ammunition loaded. Shields at full power. Amy smiled grimly. I've been wanting to shoot at some Corvics for a long time. Today seems like a good day for it. Jake felt proud of his crew. They were scared, but they were going anyway. That was what made humans different from most other species in the galaxy. When faced with impossible odds, humans did not calculate the chances of success. They calculated the cost of failure and decided whether they could live with it. Take us to maximum speed, Jake ordered. The Ranger's engines roared to life, pushing the ship far beyond normal cruising speed. The stars on the main screen began to streak past as they accelerated toward the Kepler 442 system. Behind them, Earth's children carried their homeworld's greatest lesson into the darkness between the stars. Sometimes the right thing to do was also the hardest thing to do. Sometimes helping others meant risking everything. But that was what separated the civilized from the savage, the protector from the predator. The Ranger raced through space toward an impossible fight, carrying 4 humans who had decided that some things were worth dying for. In 6 hours, they would find out if they were also worth living for. The Hughes Ranger dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. What Jake Morrison saw on the main screen made his stomach turn cold. 12 massive Corthic warships surrounded the small planet where the Zephyrian research station was located. Each enemy ship was twice the size of the Ranger, and their weapons were already charging for bombardment. My God, Lisa whispered from her navigation station. There are so many of them. On the communications channel, they could hear the Corthic commander speaking to the planet below. His voice was rough and cruel, like broken glass scraping against metal. The universal translator made his words clear and terrifying. Surrender now, little butterflies. Give us your research data, and your people will become our slaves. Refuse, and we will turn your world into glass. You have 1 hour to decide. Jake clenched his fists. The Corvics were known for keeping their promises about destruction, but their slaves never lived very long. Either choice meant death for the Zephyrians. Captain, they haven't spotted us yet, Amy reported from her weapons station. We're still running silent. We could back away, and they would never know we were here. For a moment, Jake considered it. 12 ships against 1 was not a battle. It was suicide. His crew would die, and the Zephyrians would still be doomed. But then he remembered why humans had earned their place among the stars. They had not conquered Earth by running from impossible fights. Open a channel to the Corthic fleet, Jake ordered. Sir? Lisa stared at him in shock. You heard me. Wide broadcast so everyone in the system can hear it. Lisa's hands shook slightly as she opened the communication channel. Jake stood up and faced the main screen where the enemy ships waited like hungry sharks. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Ranger. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system or face the consequences. The silence that followed lasted exactly 3 heartbeats. Then the Korthic commander's laughter filled the bridge. It was a sound like rocks falling down a cliff. 1 human ship? Are you insane, little mammal? We have 12 warships. You have 1. Even your Deathworld mathematics should tell you how this ends. You're right about the mathematics, Jake replied calmly. But you're wrong about how this ends. This is your final warning. More laughter came from the Korthic fleet. Jake could see their ships turning toward the Ranger, weapons powering up. The enemy commander was still talking, probably making jokes about crazy humans. But Jake was no longer listening. Amy, fire everything we have. Danny, prepare the special package. Lisa, broadcast our coordinates to every human ship within 50 light years. Firing, Amy announced. The Ranger unleashed hell. Nuclear-tipped missiles streaked across space toward the nearest Korthic ship. Behind them came kinetic rounds moving at nearly the speed of light. These were not the polite warning shots that civilized species used in space battles. These were weapons designed to completely destroy the target. The first Korthic ship exploded in a ball of nuclear fire. The second ship tried to dodge the kinetic rounds but failed. The tungsten rods punched through its armor like bullets through paper. Atmosphere and bodies spilled into space as the ship broke apart. What are they doing? The Korthic commander screamed over the radio. Those weapons are illegal under galactic warfare conventions. We never signed those conventions, Jake replied. Amy, target the next ship. The Korthics were fast to respond. Energy beams lanced out from the remaining ships, striking the Ranger's shields. The ship shook under the impact, but the shields held. Human shields were built to survive the radiation storms and meteor impacts of deep space. They could handle enemy fire for a while. Danny Clark had been busy at his engineering station. The Ranger was an exploration ship, but it carried mining equipment for asteroid surveys. Danny had just turned that equipment into weapons. Special package ready, Captain, Danny announced. I've rigged the mining charges with remote detonators and loaded them into the cargo launcher. Fire when ready. The Ranger spat out a dozen mining charges disguised as debris. The Korthics ignored them, focusing their fire on the human ship. They had no idea that each piece of debris contained enough explosive to crack a small moon. Amy waited until the charges drifted close to 3 enemy ships, then triggered the detonators. The explosions lit up space like new stars being born. 2 more Korthic ships died instantly. The third ship was crippled, spinning helplessly with its engines destroyed. Impossible, the Korthic commander shouted. How can one ship fight like this? We're from Earth, Jake said simply. We're used to fighting things bigger than us. But the Ranger was taking damage. 7 Korthic ships were still firing, and the human shields were beginning to fail. Sparks flew from damaged control panels. The lights flickered as power systems strained under the load. Shields down to 30%, Amy reported. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. Jake made a decision that would have horrified any civilized species. Instead of retreating or surrendering, he ordered Lisa to fly directly at the largest enemy ship. Sir, that's suicide, Lisa protested. No, it's tactics. Danny, overload the main reactor. Set it to explode on my command. Danny's face went pale, but his hands moved to the reactor controls. Overload ready, Captain. We'll have maybe 2 minutes before it goes critical. The Ranger accelerated toward the Korthic flagship, weapons firing continuously. The enemy commander realized what the humans were planning and ordered his ship to retreat, but it was too late. The human ship was too close and moving too fast. At the last second, Jake ordered emergency transport to the escape pods, but he stayed on the bridge. Someone had to make sure the reactor exploded at exactly the right moment. "Captain, get to the pods." Amy shouted over the alarms. "Negative. Someone has to guide this ship home. Take care of the crew." The Ranger smashed into the Korthik flagships, hangar bay, and kept going, cutting deep into the enemy ship's hull. Jake watched the countdown timer on his screen and smiled. Earth had taught humans that sometimes winning required sacrificing everything. "See you in hell," he whispered and pressed the detonation button. The explosion destroyed both ships instantly. The remaining Korthik vessels, seeing their flagship and commander dead, suddenly found the fight much less appealing. They had come expecting to terrorize helpless researchers, not fight Deathworld maniacs who treated suicide attacks as standard tactics. The escape pods from the Ranger drifted in space, their occupants alive, but watching their ship's funeral. Pyre. They had lost their captain and their ship, but they had saved Zephyrians and proved something important to the galaxy. Humans did not fight fair. They fought to win. The escape pods from the Ranger drifted through space like tiny metal seeds. Inside them, Lisa Rodriguez, Danny Clark, and Amy Turner watched the burning wreckage of the Korthik flagship. Their captain was dead, their ship was gone, but somehow they had managed to destroy 5 enemy vessels. 7 Korthik ships remained, and they were very angry. "This is Commander Scare of the Korthik fleet," came a voice over the radio. His tone was filled with rage and disbelief. "You Deathworld animals just killed our fleet commander. We will make you pay for this insult. We will glass this planet and hunt down every human in the galaxy." Amy activated her pod's communication system. Even in defeat, she would not let the enemy have the last word. "This is Security Chief Amy Turner. Your commander died because he picked a fight with the wrong species. You want to hunt us? Good luck with that." The Korthik ships began moving toward the planet again. Without the Ranger to stop them, they would complete their original mission. The Zephyrian colony would be destroyed, and Jake Morrison's sacrifice would mean nothing. But then something wonderful happened. Space began to fill with new ships. Human ships. They dropped out of hyperspace one after another, answering the call that Lisa had broadcast hours earlier. First came the heavy cruiser U.E. Civifiant under Captain Roy Thompson. Then the fast attack ship U.E.'s Viper with Commander Helen Wright at the helm. Even civilian vessels joined the fight. Pete Johnson brought his cargo freighter, the Lucky Strike. The ship was not built for war, but Pete had loaded it with mining explosives and welded steel plates over the important parts. Nancy Foster arrived in her survey ship, the Starseeker, using its advanced sensors to coordinate the growing human fleet. Within 20 minutes, 18 human ships faced the 7 remaining Korthik vessels. The odds had changed completely. "This is Captain Roy Thompson of the U.E.S. Defiant," came a calm voice over the communication channels. "Korthik ships, you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now, or we will show you what happens when you threaten human allies." Commander Scars' response was predictable. "We do not surrender to anyone, especially not to Deathworld scum. Attack!" The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Korthiks were experienced warriors with powerful ships and good tactics. But the humans fought like nothing in their military manuals had prepared them for. Captain Thompson used his heavy cruiser like a battering ram, charging straight at the enemy, while his guns fired continuously. The Korthiks expected him to turn away at the last second, but Thompson never slowed down. His ship crashed through a Korthik destroyer, splitting it in half. Commander Wright's fast attack ship moved like a dancing ghost, appearing behind enemy vessels and disappearing before they could return fire. She had learned fighter tactics from Earth's ancient wars and applied them to space combat. The Cortex could not hit what they could not predict. Pete Johnson did something that made even the other humans stare in amazement. He flew his freighter directly into the middle of the enemy formation and triggered his cargo hold full of mining explosives. The blast damaged 3 Cortex ships and completely destroyed his own vessel. Pete's escape pod was picked up later, and he was laughing when they found him. "Did you see their faces?" he kept saying. They had no idea a cargo ship could do that. Nancy Foster used her survey ship's sensors to guide the other human vessels. She could track enemy movements better than any military sensor array and fed targeting data to every human ship in the battle. The Cortex found themselves being hit by weapons they could not see from ships. They could not locate Dot, but the most shocking moment came when Luke Hamilton arrived in his damaged patrol ship, the U.S. Guardian. His vessel had been in dry dock for repairs when he received the distress call. Half his systems were not working, his armor was full of holes, and his weapons were operating at partial power. The smart thing would have been to stay out of the fight. Instead, Hamilton flew his broken ship straight at the largest remaining Corthic vessel. "This is for Captain Morrison," he announced over the radio. His ship smashed into the Corthic dreadnought's engine core and exploded. The chain reaction destroyed both vessels instantly, but it also sent a message that echoed across the galaxy. Humans would rather die than let evil win. The remaining Corthic ships suddenly found themselves facing an enemy that grew more dangerous as the battle continued. Every human ship that was destroyed seemed to inspire the others to fight harder. This was not how civilized species conducted warfare. "We surrender." Commander Scar finally screamed over the radio. "We surrender. Please stop attacking us." The human ships held their fire, but they kept their weapons trained on the enemy vessels. Captain Thompson's voice came over the communication channel, calm and cold. "You will withdraw from this system immediately. You will never return. You will tell your people that this colony is under human protection. Any Corthic ship found within 50 light years of this system will be destroyed without warning. Do you understand?" "Yes, yes, we understand. We are leaving now." The 3 surviving Corthic ships jumped to hyperspace so fast they probably damaged their own engines. The humans watched them go, then turned their attention to the Zephyrian colony doctor. Crystal Wing Harmony was the chief scientist of the research station. She was a delicate creature with wings like stained glass and a voice like silver bells. When the human ships contacted the colony, she could barely speak through her amazement. "You came," she whispered. "When we sent that distress call, we hoped someone might hear it. But we never imagined that anyone would actually come to help us, especially not when facing such terrible odds." Captain Thompson's response was simple and honest. That's what humans do. When someone calls for help, we answer. The Zephyrians had never encountered anything like humanity before. Most species in the galaxy were cautious and careful. They calculated risks and avoided unnecessary dangers. The idea of traveling across space to fight a hopeless battle for complete strangers was completely alien to them. But as the human ships began rescue, operations, and medical assistance, Dr. Crystal Wing Harmony began to understand something important about these Deathworld creatures. They were not violent because they enjoyed destruction. They were violent because they refused to let others suffer when they had the power to stop it. The galaxy was about to learn that lesson too. News of the Battle of Kepler 442 spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within days, every species in the Galactic Federation knew what had happened. A single human ship had answered a distress call from complete strangers. When that ship was destroyed, more humans came. They fought impossible odds and won, asking for nothing in return. The reaction was immediate and divided. On the water world of Aquatica Prime, Admiral Coral Storm called an emergency meeting of the Defensive Council. The admiral was an ancient being whose species had lived in peace for 10,000 years. The idea of rushing into battle to help strangers terrified her. "These humans are dangerous," she announced to the gathered representatives. "They have weapons that violate every civilized convention of warfare. They attack without hesitation and fight without regard for their own safety. We must restrict their military movements before they destabilize the entire galaxy." But Ambassador Stone Strength of the Silicon Collective disagreed. His people were logical beings who made decisions based on facts, not fear. He had studied the battle reports carefully. The humans only fought to protect an innocent colony, Stone Strength argued. They used extreme methods because they faced extreme circumstances. In 400 years of contact, humans have never started a war or attacked anyone who was not threatening others first. The debate continued for hours. Some species wanted to ban human ships from certain sectors. Others wanted to give humans special authority to respond to emergencies. The Federation could not decide what to do about Earth's children, while politicians argued the survivors of the Ranger were being treated as heroes. Lisa Rodriguez, Danny Clark, and Amy Turner had been rescued from their escape pods and taken to the Federation medical station at Centauri Base. Their injuries were minor, but their impact on galactic society was enormous. Captain Sue Miller of the science vessel UES Discovery visited them in the hospital. She was a calm woman with gray hair and kind eyes who had spent most of her career studying alien cultures. Now she found herself studying the reaction of those cultures to humanity. "A Federation Council wants to interview you," Sue told the 3 survivors. "They want to understand why humans do what you did at Kepler 442. Amy Turner laughed bitterly from her hospital bed. "What's to understand? Bad guys were hurting good guys. We stopped them. It's not complicated." "But it is complicated to them," Sue explained. "Most species evolved on peaceful worlds. They've never had to develop the instincts that make humans willing to fight hopeless battles. They literally cannot understand why anyone would risk their lives for strangers." Danny Clark spoke up from his bed across the room. "So what happens now? Do they kick us out of the Federation?" "Some want to," Sue admitted. "But others are starting to realize something important. In a galaxy full of peaceful species, sometimes you need someone who's willing to fight." 3 weeks later, Lisa Rodriguez found herself standing before the full Galactic Federation Council. The massive chamber held representatives from over 200 species. Most of them stared at her with mixtures of fear and curiosity. She was just a young navigator from Mars, but somehow she had become the voice of humanity. "We have reviewed the events at Kepler 442, announced Prime Speaker Wisdom of Ages, an elderly being whose species had founded the Federation centuries ago. We find that humans acted outside established protocols for handling colonial disputes." Lisa felt her temper rising. "Protocols? While you were following protocols, the Zephyrians were about to be enslaved or murdered." "Perhaps," the Prime Speaker replied, "but your species' response was extremely violent. You used weapons that most civilized beings consider barbaric. You conducted suicide attacks. You showed no regard for the conventions of civilized warfare." "You're right," Lisa said, surprising everyone in the chamber. "We don't fight like civilized species. We fight like people who grew up on a world that was trying to kill us every day. We fight like people who learned that sometimes the only way to stop a bully is to hit him so hard he never gets back up." She looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching her. "You want to know why we do it? Because someone has to. You've built a beautiful, peaceful galaxy where everyone talks and negotiates and follows rules. But what happens when someone doesn't follow the rules? What happens when talking doesn't work?" The chamber fell silent. Lisa continued, her voice growing stronger. The Korthiks didn't want to negotiate with the Zephyrians. They wanted to enslave them. Your protocols and committees and diplomatic processes wouldn't have saved those people. But 3 humans in a single ship were willing to die trying. Prime Speaker Wisdom of Ages considered her words carefully. And what would you have us do? Give humans unlimited authority to wage war wherever they choose? No, Lisa replied. Give us the authority to answer distress calls. When someone sends out an SOS, let us respond. When innocent people are in danger, let us help them. That's all we want. The debate that followed lasted for days. In the end, the Federation reached a compromise that changed galactic society forever. They created the Morrison Doctrine, named after the captain who had died protecting strangers. Under the new rules, human ships would be allowed to respond to any genuine distress call regardless of political boundaries or diplomatic considerations. In exchange, humans would share their defensive technologies with any species that wanted them and help train. Federation Security Forces. President Angela Cross of Earth made the announcement from the Capitol building in Geneva. She was a strong woman who had led humanity through its first century as a galactic civilization. Her words were broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Today, the Galactic Federation has recognized something that humans have always known, she said. Freedom is not free. Peace is not automatic. Sometimes good people must fight to protect others who cannot protect themselves. We accept this responsibility not because we want to, but because we must. The changes came quickly after that. Other species that had evolved on dangerous worlds began to emerge from hiding. They had been afraid to reveal their militaristic natures, but humanity had shown them that strength could serve noble purposes. The Drakmari, who looked like armored lizards, offered their expertise in defensive warfare. The Askai, bear-like beings from a frozen world, shared their knowledge of survival in hostile environments. Even the peaceful species began to develop new security measures. But the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed distress calls. Before Kepler 442, an SOS was just a request for help that might or might not be answered. After the battle, it became something more. It became a promise that someone would come, no matter how dangerous the situation or how impossible the odds. Captain Morrison's sacrifice had started something that would reshape galactic civilization. He had shown the galaxy that Deathworlders brought more than just weapons and violence. They brought the will to use those weapons to protect others. In the outer I'm territories, a new ship was launched from Earth's orbital shipyards. It was named the UES Morrison, and its captain was a young woman who had once served as navigator on a ship called the Ranger. Lisa Rodriguez stood on her new bridge, monitoring dozens of emergency frequencies. When the next distress call came, she would answer it. That was what humans did. They heard the call, they brought the firepower, and they reminded the galaxy that sometimes the greatest strength belonged to those who had learned to fight. Just to see another sunrise,